Here is some backstory. I live in a small town pretty far away from the main city, but it's still a part of it. I live in Karachi, Pakistan. Right next to my town is a rural area with farmhouses and animals and breeding places. In this rural area, a friend of mine owns a farm with a good amount of ammunition, which is very rare in Pakistan because of gun laws. But the friend happened to be from a gun-dealing family. I was staying at the farm that night, and it was only me, my friend, and a helper there. His cousin was usually there, as the cousin owns the farm, but he was off doing some work that night. Me and my friend were on the rooftop smoking cigarettes and drinking some beer when I noticed a large semi-truck approaching down the highway into the rural area. It came down the road, and just when it was about to make the turn to go onto the farm road, the headlights went off. That's when we knew it wasn't a friendly truck. My friend made a dash outside carrying a 9mm pistol, which was usually enough to scare people off. But just to be sure, I stood on the rooftop with an assault rifle. Our goal was to only scare these people off and not do anything stupid. Now, my friend made a big mistake, standing outside the farm, and some people shot rounds straight at him. As you can imagine, we were petrified. My friend ran to the other side of the road in a panic, no clue what he was going to do, and I shot a whole clip into the air trying to scare off these guys, basically saying we have larger guns as well. It seemed to work, as the guys left straight away, and my friend came up, and we sat and smoked more, thinking about what we should have done. We were considering going to the police when the guard dogs began barking like crazy. These were well-behaved dogs that would not bark for any reason, and they seemed to be barking at cattle. I ordered them to quiet down, which they normally would do right away as they obeyed me, as I had trained them, but they didn't seem to budge. They kept on barking and biting the cattle. When the helper let out a scream that was immediately hushed out. I actually thought that the helper was shot dead or something. I was scared out of my mind, so was my friend. I made my way down to find the helper lying on the floor with his head busted open. That's when I noticed the farm door swung wide open. One of the guys, or the robbers, had snuck into the farm and hidden among the cattle, looking for the perfect opportunity to open the farm door. I looked up to see my friend with horror in his eyes. The truck was approaching again. I'm pretty sure I almost crapped myself this time, knowing full well that we were not only about to get robbed, but probably killed too. I untied the dogs immediately, thinking they would provide at least a bit of help. My friend tossed me the 9mm, and I stood there shaking, waiting for a possible shootout death. That's when the luckiest thing I've ever seen happened. The police had been reporting shots fired and then made their way to the rural area. It was rural, so it took them quite a while, but their timing was amazing. The red and blue lights possibly scared the robbers away, but they were like angels sent from heaven for us. We told the cops everything that happened, and the cops offered to stay with us for the night. We accepted it, and told the neighboring farms about the lurking threat as well. Thankfully, nothing like that ever happened again. My whole life, my mum was single and tried hard with the best of intentions to find me a suitable father figure. My own father is a homeless drug addict who was out of my life long before this. I was about 10 at the time, and we were visiting a friend of hers who had kids that I got along well with. Her friend was always trying to hook up my mum, also with good intentions. We had been visiting all day and it was getting late, and I was tired and ready to go home. I go through the house and find my mum on the patio talking with the guy she was to be hooked up with that night. As I stepped out onto the patio and set eyes on him, I was immediately stricken with a deep-seated feeling of dread and wanted nothing more than to get my mum away from him as fast as possible. In fact, looking back at his face, he almost seemed evil in a way I cannot explain. As this hit me, I tried to stay calm, and I asked my mum to come inside so that I could speak with her. She came inside and I told her I wanted to leave as soon as possible, sensing that I was feeling distressed for some reason. And being the great mum who always listens to me in situations like this, she said okay, and soon after we left. As soon as we were on the road, I told my mum exactly how I felt and that I didn't want her to ever see or speak to him again. Once again, not wanting to upset me, she said okay and didn't speak to him again. Maybe 6 months later, my mum's friend calls to gossip, as they frequently did, and she tells my mum that the same man from the night was now in prison. He had gotten together with a woman who had 2 kids, and one night he ended up locking the kids in a closet in the same room, and he had their mum tied to a bed and repeatedly raped her. My mum was sitting on the floor of the living room reading the newspaper, as she usually did while on the phone with her friend, and I was on the couch next to her watching TV. And I will never forget the look she gave me as she told me this news. While I was in university, I took my motorbike down to pick up my wife, who was my girlfriend during this story. She worked in an office building downtown and was fortunate enough to get off work early on Friday afternoons. So I hopped on my Kawasaki Ninja and headed downtown. I called my girlfriend with the comms unit attached to my helmet to let her know I was near her office building and looking for parking. She informed me that she would meet me at the food court in the mall that is across the street from her building. Now, for reference, I always bring my helmet with me no matter what. I learnt my lesson from leaving it on my bike and having it stolen once before. The other thing is, I had a second helmet in my backpack for my girlfriend. Safety first. The second helmet will become important later. After meeting her in the food court and having a meal, we wandered around the mall, looking at engagement rings and such. She found a ring she liked very much and, yes ladies, I ended up buying it. While I dumped my wallet out on the counter and imagining my bank account emptying, my girlfriend grabbed my arm and said, "Hey, the same 2 guys have walked past the store for the 5th time while we've been in here, and they keep looking at us." In order to relax her, I responded with the ever clever, "They're just jealous because of how damn good I look in my riding gear. Really, it's a problem." Through laughter, my girlfriend proceeded to inform me that my sexy outfit made me look like a fat ninja. With the 2 guys forgotten and my ego obliterated, we left the store to make our way towards the bike. To get there, we had to go down 2 escalators, walk across the bottom floor of the mall, across the street, and into the lot of her office building, where my bike was parked. Just as we stepped onto the first escalator, my girlfriend suddenly grabbed my arm really tight and used her eyes to draw my attention to 2 guys directly behind us. I looked back at her, and with a slight nod, she confirmed that it was the same guys that had walked by the store. I took off my backpack and pulled the second bike helmet out the bag and handed it to my girlfriend so that we could hasten our journey. As we stepped off the escalator and made our way to the second one, I caught the reflection of the 2 guys in the glass window of the stores in the mall. They were behind us all right. I could hear them making comments about my girlfriend's appearance to each other as we walked, but not quietly. Their comments were loud for other people to hear. When we reached the second escalator, my blood was boiling. It took everything in me to not turn around and face the perverts head on. My girlfriend absolutely hates conflict, and out of respect for her, I kept my mouth shut and doubled our efforts to leave. While we were walking towards the exit on the main floor, I heard it. The sentence that will forever make me paranoid. One of them said to the other, "Let's kill him and take her." For the sake of your ears, dear listeners, I did not use the vulgar words that they used to describe their intentions. My girlfriend's grip on my bicep tightened like a vice, and then I heard it and saw it. She was sobbing, and I could see the wide-eyed fear in her face. I pushed her directly in front of me to force a faster pace out of the mall. We exited and started to turn the corner of the street, where we had to cross. My girlfriend kept looking back with a panicked voice and she said, "They're coming." Hearing the fear in her voice made something snap. I shut everything out and went cold. As soon as we got out of the corner, I forced my girlfriend around it and went against the wall. I looked at her and she looked right back at me. We ran. I took the helmet that she was clutching in her hands with a firm grip. She took off across the street heading for the bike and I stood there waiting. I took the moment to get my helmet on for protection and took the second helmet in my hand ready. I heard the sound of running footsteps coming down the sidewalk around the corner. What happened next may just be the craziest damn thing I've ever done. Before I continue with the story, ask yourself, if you heard those words from two perverts following you and your loved one, would you play it off as them being punks trying to scare you? Or would you take it as seriously as a heart attack, like I did? These two threatened to kill me. I was okay with that, I accepted that. But what they threatened my girlfriend with, I refused to brush off. She was a victim of sexual assault before I knew her, and absolutely refused the smallest chance of something like that ever happening to her again. As soon as the two guys neared the corner, I stepped forward and gave them the universal sign for slow down by taking a swing. Let me be the first to tell you that when a motorcycle helmet meets a person's face, that's the start and the end of a fight. Period. No, I didn't end his life, but I guarantee the guy felt like I did. Pervert number 2, at my surprise, didn't even flinch at the sight of his body being destroyed. He threw some punches and I took those punches. We locked arms and he slammed me into the wall. I pulled my head back and headbutted the guy with my helmet on. He stumbled backwards and I seized the moment and kicked him on the side of the knee and threw some punches of my own. At this point, my girlfriend had made it back to the bike and had called the authorities. Being downtown, they came quick. Now here's the part I regretted. I grabbed the helmet I used to take down pervert number 1 and sprinted to my bike. I didn't wait for the authorities to arrive, with the story my girlfriend gave to the police. The two guys left broken on the sidewalk with lots of witnesses. I figured the smart thing to do was head directly to the bike and take my girlfriend away from the horror show. The two perverts ended up being arrested and taken away. Apparently they had a history with law enforcement. Luckily, I was not thrown in the back of a police car for being the first one to dish out damage. Witnesses, their prior offenses, and security camera evidence from them all saved my ass. I meant it wholeheartedly that I was willing to go to jail to protect my girlfriend from two predators. The following summer, we got engaged and I got her a new helmet. I threw the old one out as it was a constant reminder of that scary event. I'm not sure what the pervert duo are up to these days, but for their sakes, let's not meet again. Because if we do, you can bet your life I'll have my helmet with me.